Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, good. Yourself?
Good. Good, good, good. Um, is the audio good, or can you hear a lot of background noise?
A little bit, but not too bad.
Not too bad. Okay, perfect. Uh, I have better internet outside of my house than inside of it, so I had to head out. Um, it's great to meet you. I've worked with, having worked with your testimony, and now to see you in person. So nice to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to, I don't know what we're doing, but I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
I guess we'll wait. I think there's another presentation before us too. I'm not sure.
Okay. Awesome. Should I tell me more about what I'm maybe if you don't mind what I'm doing or just I'm not entirely sure, honestly. So
From what I understand, I think Ignacio will present the book,
great.
and he'll ask you what your role in the book has been. I think he just wants you to present yourself in maybe in a minute. I think that's the allotted time. Tell us a bit about your um, what story, a little bit about the story you told us for the book.
Great. I'm just going to reread that story
I'm
now. That
guessing.
helps a lot.
Uh-huh.
I saw this go by very quickly in the go. Great, got it.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Zoe Johnson. I'm really sorry about the delay here, but I'm really pleased to welcome you today to this event, this session on the Chronicles of Cryosphere Loss. So today's event is going to feature 4 presentations followed by a panel discussion. And to briefly introduce you to our 4 co-conveners and their work, first, we have the Great Thaw team, which emerged from the Global Water Futures Transitions Interdisciplinary Project, which aimed to bring art and science together to highlight the impacts of climate change on mountains, glaciers, snow, and ice. Artist Gennady Ivanov gained insight into the science behind climate change and joined scientists John Pomeroy and Trevor Davies on research visits and measurement campaigns in remote parts of Canada and around the world. Second, we'll hear from the Emotions of Deglaciation team, who give voice to 35 diverse individuals whose lives are tied to tropical glaciers, relating their feelings, perceptions, and experiences, as well as how they are adapting to a transforming reality. Third, we have On the Trail of Glaciers, a photographic scientific project that combines photographic comparison and scientific research in order to disseminate the effects of climate change through observation of changes in glacial mass over the last 150 years. And last, we'll hear from GRID-Arendal, a nonprofit organization based in Norway that transforms science into compelling stories for a healthier, more equitable planet. I'm now going to turn the floor to the Great Thaw team. And joining us from the team is Dr. John Pomeroy, a UNESCO chair in mountain water sustainability and distinguished professor and director of the Global Water Futures Program at the University of Saskatchewan in Canada. He's a snow and ice hydrologist who wants to improve communication of science outcomes to the public and decision makers. We also have Dr. Trevor Davies, who held various positions at the University of East Anglia, including the Director of Climatic Research Unit, and he, together with Dr. Pomeroy, saw the potential of working with the artist, Gennady Ivanov, for making a contribution to the outreach program. Mr. Gennady Ivanov is an artist from the United Kingdom. He is a Master's of Fine Art from Norwich University of the Arts and was a winner of the Norfolk Visual Arts Award 2021 and Coastwise Arts Award 2025. He spent 2 years as artist in residence at the University of Saskatchewan as a part of the Global Water Futures. Thank you very much, and the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you very much, Zoe. And could we have the first slide, please? Okay, great. So I'd like to introduce you to the Transitions Great Thaw project, part of Global Water Futures. And this book has recently been published, within one day, by UNESCO and the University of Saskatchewan. And I put on the URL for the University of Saskatchewan link, but there's also a UNESCO link I think you can find by searching. So the full title of the book is Great Thaw, a homage in art to the vanishing cryosphere. And it explores art and science in the context of the rapid changes in the cryosphere, primarily in Western and Northern Canada, but also around the world, and touches upon global issues. Next slide, please. So the area where most of the art was conducted, and this was taking Gennady Ivanov on expeditions, scientific expeditions to research sites in the Global Water Futures program in an area of the western interior of North America that is undergoing rapid climate change and rapid environmental and social change in response to this. And these are some results from the Global Water Futures program of what we see for the future of the region. And you see wildfires there. And yes, we've had record wildfires over the last few years, rapid glacier melt, darkening glaciers, reduced snowpacks, thawing permafrost, low flows in some of the major rivers, such as the Mackenzie in Saskatchewan, affecting irrigation and transport and ecosystems, shrub movement and expansion into the Arctic tundra, the change in agricultural practices, as well as record heat. And these are all occurring very, very quickly. Immense hydrological changes, other changes. And so the society in that part of Canada is struggling to cope with these rapid changes. It's stressing all aspects at the same time. Next slide, please. Yeah. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Professor Davies for this one.
The photograph at bottom right shows Gennady Ivanov painting on top of the St. Elias ice field, which spans the US-Canada border. One of his many attributes is that he's able to work incredibly quickly in the field. So top right is a pastel painting with a figure of John Pomeroy trying to direct the art. And he uses these field paintings together with his memories, photographs, videos, sound recordings to paint big oil paintings in the studio. Some of these paintings up to 1.2 meters by a meter. And very interesting techniques, Gennady, to be able to cope with these conditions to produce such rapid field paintings.
Yes, for me, its main magic and problematic of this expedition was to find the right materials. And I tried everything, is like oil paintings and watercolors. It doesn't work. Watercolors freezing because it's cold. It was, for example, this place, Mount Logan, it was -15 at the time, so I couldn't use watercolors or oil painting. So I used pastels, which actually gave me work very quick, energetic, and multicolored, and bring lots of energy in the right moment. Yeah, maybe next slide, maybe. Next slide, please.
Two of Gennady's field paintings on the right-hand side. This is the Athabasca Glacier, which is part of UNESCO World Heritage Site. And Gennady produced this oil painting of a massive meltwater runoff, which you can see the reddish hue on the glacier, and this was deposits of red algae together with soot and ash. And they accelerate the melting of the glacier, typically by up to 10%. And this particular glacier has lost something of the order of 50% of its volume in the last century.
Next slide, please. So this is Peyto Glacier. Peyto Glacier has had some measurements going back to 1897 and intensive scientific measurements since 1965, when it became one of the International Hydrological Decade reference glaciers and study basins, with intensive studies from the Canadian government, but scientists from all over the world have come to Peyto Glacier to study it. We currently in Global Water Futures have stations on the ice and off the ice there in collaboration with the Geological Survey of Canada, who conduct mass balance measurements. But it's disintegrating. And here you see painting from Gennady of a helicopter visit to the ice, the vast fields of dark cryoconite of organic and mineral matter forming, darkening the ice, paintings of the crevasses forming, and also the opening of subglacial meltwater channels, vast channels that have opened up and since collapsed in all these paintings from 2019 have now portray places that do not exist anymore. But it's a stunning portrayal of the end of an iconic science glacier.
The painting on the left-hand side is an oil painting of a very dramatic location where Global Water Futures has one of its automatic weather stations. This is Fortress Mountain in Alberta. And a theme of many of Gennady's paintings is fire and explosion on the right-hand side. And John, perhaps you'd like to explain the origin of that, the slow nuclear explosion.
Yes, that's my favorite Met station, by the way. But the nuclear explosion, there's a chief of the Gwich'in people in the Northwest Territories in Yukon who described climate change as a nuclear explosion in slow motion for his people because of the thaw, the permafrost, the loss of their environment and Gwich'in homeland. And so Gennady was able to metaphorically portray a nuclear explosion at Fortress Mountain. You see the station's gone, the science is gone, the snow and ice is gone, and things are looking very bad. Ironically, the G7 leaders will be meeting just a few kilometers from this site, and I would love to take them there, and not with a nuclear explosion, but to talk about the science and what we're finding. And behind that station, there are the remnants of a glacier. It no longer exists, but it has existed in my lifetime. Now it's a bit of a debris-covered ice mass. But so we're seeing these changes very, very rapidly in this environment. Slide.
This, they're all painting on the left-hand side. There's a red invasion at Wolf Creek. Wolf Creek is one of the observation stations of Global Water Futures in Yukon. And this particular painting, I think, was the first example of a really animated, prolonged discussion between artists and scientists over just how the red invasion was represented, whether the bushes were at the right height, overgrowing the observation station within 20 years from tundra shrubland. And Gennady, perhaps you can tell us some of the symbolism in here, in the flickering flames and the seeds and so on.
Yes, it was interesting. One moment I just when I start feel it, I thought it's finished painting, and I start to add a little bit black dots inside this red flames, and I realized this looks like seeds of the future, which actually producing these bushes producing more and more and more. So this place will be soon covered in bushes. So it's nothing will be left, stations gone. So this is the whole idea.
It's Gennady captured it beautifully. I should explain, this was a Met station I put up in 1996, well above the tundra shrubs. I don't normally put my instruments under the vegetation canopy in this case. And then I still remember sitting in field camp, maybe 2001, 2002, saying, why did I set the anemometer so low? That was terrible. And then when my colleague said, John, you didn't look at, he had an old photograph. It had already shifted in that decade, but even more so now. So these tundra shrubs, and this is called shrubification, are overwhelming the Met station. And Gennady has portrayed this like a fire. It's consuming the data and the science, as well as transforming that tundra landscape into something very different and very hostile to many species such as caribou, which can no longer graze in there. And there has been extirpation of caribou from many parts of the Arctic in Canada, partly due to this shrubification. So we're losing the tundra, and that's what it looks like. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. There we are.
Yeah, Basket Case is Kinbasket Lake in British Columbia. It's a 200-kilometer long reservoir built for HEP to feed reliably hydroelectric power stations, also for community water supply. This was a painting in 2022. And the symbolism there is not symbolism, it's real. That is a dust devil in the distance on the bed of the dried out lake. And the driftwood in the foreground really did look like the carcass of a steer.
Yes, just saying a bit more. The Kinbasket Lake is part of the Columbia River system, which President Trump has referred to as a great faucet in Canada he can use to turn on to solve California's water problems. And anyway, they better take a better look at the faucet. It's the faucet's bone dry. The one next to it is nature doing something, not man-made reservoirs. This is Kluane Lake, a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the Yukon Territory of Northern Canada. And you see a largely dry lake bed there. This is due to river piracy. So the Kaskawalsh Glacier, which drains out of the St. Elias ice field, has been retreating dramatically. And the meltwaters from that glacier have diverted from the Slims River that flows into Kluane Lake into the Alsek River, which drains south into Alaska. And Kluane Lake levels dropped 1.6 meters like that. once this diversion and piracy occurred. So this is a direct implication of climate change. It meant the indigenous people could not get their boats in the water, the harbors were dry, and you can see a vast, rapid ecological change occurring. And this is in the subarctic of Canada, and it gets dust storms now as well.
Next one.
You want to comment?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
some couple.
Yeah.
Yes, it's plunged by piracy. It was I was so impressed when I was in this place by Kluane Lake when I saw the dust on a place where used to be a lake. It shocked me, and I immediately created painting. I've been drawing there actually on this place. It was cold, but it was absolutely it's so inspiring for artists to see this. Yeah.
Next slide, please.
Gennady also portrays some of the challenges facing us. The first one, denier station. There are elements in that which represent the upside down logic of climate deniers. Would you like to say something about that, Gennady?
Yeah, this is painting was born on ideas about visiting several sites with John Pomeroy and Trevor Davis, and I saw so many stations, and I couldn't believe how some people tell me, you just liar, you just lie about climate change. And I started to think I must to create something about them. It's just like present for them. It's like upside down logics people have. They don't see anything. How they can say anything about it?
And the sharp-eyed among you will see that the sensors, some of the sensors on the automatic weather station are upside down.
The Caspian oil futures refers to the Caspian Sea, and I had the opportunity to visit Baku for COP29 just in the fall of last year, and noticed the incredible oil expansion. It was really the first place in the world where large oil developments occurred, and they still occur with large oil fields in the Caspian Sea, pipelines. But also we know in the Caucasus Mountains, loss of snowpacks, rapid deglaciation, and the Caspian Sea is already dropping. It's the only sea that's going down, not up. And because it's, of course, in inland drainage, and forecast to drop many tens of meters by the rest of the century. And so this caused me to have a bit of a nightmare one night at COP29, which I conveyed to Gennady, who readily painted my nightmare. And this is some future Caspian Sea dystopia, which unfortunately we're heading towards. Next slide, please. Yeah, so anyway, that's a little excerpt from this book. There's over 140 paintings and sketches of various types in there, a few photographs. And there you can see a bit of an outline of the contents and some of the team up on the St. Elias ice field and some lovely crevasses on Peyto Glacier. Don't go there in the winter when it's snow covered now, not without a rope and a harness and a very good ice axe. So thank you so much for this opportunity to speak about it.
Okay, thank you very much. Up next, we have Dr. Ignacio Palomo. He's an environmental sciences researcher at the French National Research Institute for Sustainable Development and the University of Grenoble-Alpes. He's a member of the Global Young Academy, an international society of young scientists, and co-founder of the Young Academy of Spain, a member of the International Science Council. As an avid photographer and climber, he lives in the French Alps. To you, Doctor.
Thanks so much, Zoe. And it's wonderful to be here to see so many colleagues and friends. I was wondering, have you ever heard the voice of a glacier? How it cracks at night and how it collapses in the daylight? In the words of Liz Macedo, guardian of the Isinga Hat in Peru, it is as if the mountain was screaming. The roar of the falling seracs
makes me think Tokyarahu is crying for help. The testimony of Liz Macedo from the Inca hut is one of the 35 that we have collected in the book that we're going to present now with the following video. The video, please.
Glaciers are silent witnesses to a world ever changing. Like the pages of a book, they hold stories and emotions. But while books endure through time, glaciers are vanishing, taking their stories with them. Nowhere is the fragility of glaciers more evident than in the tropics. By 2050, most tropical glaciers around the world will be gone, including those in UNESCO designated sites like Mount Kilimanjaro and the Rwenzori Mountains in Africa. For many whose lives are deeply connected to these glaciers, their disappearance brings a profound sense of loss, worry, and uncertainty. Yet amidst this loss, there is also care and hope, found in those working tirelessly on glacier preservation and nature conservation. UNESCO and IRD are echoing the voices of these vanishing tropical glaciers to ensure their memories are not lost. The Voices of Glaciers brings together 35 stories of diverse individuals, sharing their feelings, experiences, and ways of adapting to a changing reality. We hear stories of resilience, respect, and reverence from indigenous peoples, rangers, tourists, scientists, alpinists, artists, and others who live or work amidst tropical glaciers. Combining perspectives from disciplines from anthropology, glaciology, and sustainability science, it provides a unique insight into the impacts of glacier loss. Captivating images throughout the book reveal dramatic ice loss in Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia over the last 175 years, telling a powerful story on their own. It offers striking examples of climate change impacts unfolding in some of the planet's most vulnerable regions. It's also a bellwether of the future of glaciers elsewhere, and the people that depend on them if we fail to mitigate it. As the international community marks 2025 as the International Year of Glaciers Preservation and embarks on the Decade of Action for Cryospheric Sciences 2025 to 2034, the pages of this book serve as a powerful testimony to the urgency of action. The Voices of Glaciers is not just a chronicle of loss. It's a call to listen, to learn, and to act.
Great. Can somebody put the presentation, please? So I had the pleasure to coordinate this book with over 60 collaborators all over the world. The book, it's called The Voices of Glaciers, Stories of Grief and Hope Amidst Shrinking Glaciers in the Tropics. Just gonna give a couple of seconds to get the presentation online. Great. If you can go to the next slide, because this is not working. So this is the book of the map, sorry, of the location of tropical glaciers worldwide. Well, better said is the location when we started the book 3 years ago. As you could see, there was tropical glaciers in 12 different countries. And while the process of writing this book, Venezuela lost officially its last remaining glacier in Humboldt Peak. And therefore, there is now only 11 countries having tropical glaciers. And Indonesia, the remaining glaciers are going to be lost in the coming 10 years. So glaciers in the tropics are receding very fast, but this is not something new. We all know this, right? Next slide, please. What we know less, and you can just animate this slide, is what are the emotions of glacier loss? Is there concern? Is there sadness and loss? Is there hope? Is there acceptance? All these emotions that we have been talking a little bit through the day can be found somewhere in the territory. You can just go to the next slide. Yeah, and you can see the emotions popping up somewhere in the landscape. If you just could click to go to the next slide. Yeah, you will see the emotions coming out in the landscape, right? So who is holding all these emotions of glaciers and glacier loss? So what we do in this book, and you're gonna see it in the next slide, is to tell 35 told and untold stories of glacier loss in the tropics. And if you can just move to the next slide, please. Through the stories of different individuals. And we have been interviewing all over the tropics, indigenous communities, local communities, tourists, victims of risks, guardians of glaciers, artists, scientists. And we have been telling their special stories that they have in relation to particular glaciers. So, for example, if you go to the next slide, I guess you will know the person who is Baltasar Usca, the last merchant of ice, collecting ice in the Chimborazo and going back to the city to sell it. And if you could just pass to the end of this slide, sorry, to the previous one, just to mention that in order to compile all these different stories, great, thanks. We had to put together different disciplines like glaciology, but also environmental sciences, as well as anthropology, to be able to tell the story of the glaciers and the people who have a special connection to these glaciers. Yeah, now it's working. So this is a graph that shows the number of publications, academic publications per year, ordered by discipline. And as you can see, most of the disciplines or most of the publications on glaciers, they come from the geosciences, the physical sciences, and a bunch of other different disciplines. But the first really social discipline that comes on the list is geography, which is number 15 on this list, which shows that there is quite limited social sciences research on glaciers. And this is what we have been trying to do with this book. And we tell a few stories. You're gonna hear firsthand two people from this book that are gonna speak after me. But I wanted to start with the story of Saul Luciano Yuya, who is a subsistence farmer, mountain guide, and advocate, who put a climate litigation. We've been talking about that this morning, 11 years ago, and the final hearings have been happening this week in Germany. We are just waiting for the final verdict. So it was just a small amount of money, just $20,000 to build a dike to protect his village near Warath from a future potential gulf. But if he happens to win the case, it could set an important legal precedent. So we tell his story, how he went through this process and how he lived that personally in the book. We tell other stories as well. I'm not gonna go through all of them. Just to mention that we have stories here. You have one from Super Josué, a climate advocate from Colombia, and Cecilia Yusco from the Cholitas Climbers in Bolivia. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank to the professional photographers that have contributed with their work to this book. Some of these pictures you can see outside in the fences of the building of UNESCO where you are now. And I also wanted to say thanks to the great team that has made this book possible with a bunch of collaborators, among whom I'm going to introduce in a few seconds Antoine Rabatel and Sofia Lana, who have been working from glaciology and anthropology on this book. And I also take the opportunity to thank Carolina Adler and the MRI for the support they have provided to this book. And you will also hear in a few seconds from one of the protagonists of this book, Marcela Fernandez, who is sitting at the end of the table here with us, and as well as Will Gadd, who is a United Nations mountain hero and professional ice climber. So without taking more time, I'm gonna pass the word to my friend and colleague, Antoine Rabatel, who is a glaciologist at the University of Grenoble-Alpes. So Antoine, yes, if you could just tell us in a couple of minutes, what has been your role in the book and have you gone through it? Thanks.
Thank you, Ignacio. Hello, everyone. Can you go back to one slide with a map, please? So, as Ignacio just said, I'm a glaciologist at the University of Grenoble. I'm working on tropical glaciers since close to 25 years from now. I started doing my PhD in 2002 in Bolivia on fluctuation of glaciers since the Little Ice Age. And Ignacio asked me at the beginning if I could map the retreat of tropical glaciers. And so we discussed together, and the idea was to show this kind of representation you have on the screen, where you can see the extension of one glacier here with the green line, which is representing the Little Ice Age extent, so more or less the extent of the glacier, let's say 200 years ago. And you have also the blue line, which represents the extent of the glacier in 2000. And then one simulation for 2050, which appear in red on this map. And so, first of all, Ignacio asked me if I could make such an illustration for each of the continents where we have tropical glaciers, so one from South America, one from Africa, one from Indonesia. And then I think that he found it beautiful, maybe. And so he asked me to make one for each of the countries. And he mentioned that there are tropical glaciers, or there were tropical glaciers in 12 countries. And so I did it. And finally, we have one of these illustrations for each one of the interviews, so 35. And each one of these illustrations is related to the place where the person is living and is experiencing his daily life with glaciers. And it's also related with a small story, let's say, of the story, or a special event that occurred in this glacier. And the one we see now is in Peru, in the Cordillera Blanca, and you can see a proglacial lake where there was a gulf in 1940 with many people killed in the city of Huaraz. So that's it for my contribution, and I acknowledge Ignacio for being part of this book.
Yeah, thanks so much, Antoine. I would like to give the floor now to a very special colleague who is online. I don't know if we could perhaps see her on the screen. I would like to welcome Sofia Lana, who is an anthropologist from Argentina, working from the University of California, San Diego. Can you hear us, Sofia?
Yes, can you hear me? Yes? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for having me. Good afternoon from Mendoza,
Hi,
Argentina.
we cannot hear you.
Oh, you can't? How about now? Is that better?
With the sound. I don't know if
Can you hear
somebody
me?
can please
No.
make that work. That would be lovely.
Because Will, you can hear me, no? Oh.
Yeah, so
Can you hear me?
apparently people can hear you online, Sofia.
Yes.
So it seems like it's just an issue in our room here. While the technicians try to solve it, I'm gonna give the floor first to Marcela Fernandez while they try to get it solved. So Marcela Fernandez is sitting at the end of the table. You have heard her this morning in one of her questions, and she's one of the main characters of the book. And I'm really glad she came here in person to Paris. She's the founder of Cumbres Blancas, a really important movement that started in Colombia a few years ago and that is spreading to many countries. She was named one of the 100 most important women in the world by the BBC, and that's because she has a very special story to tell. So Marcela, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be sitting here, and I bring all the other 34 stories with me, and I admire deeply those guardians, because I know how it feels when glaciers steal your heart. They transformed my life. I told you I had no idea that there were tropical glaciers in Colombia, and they whispered me to build this movement called Cumbres Blancas. And we started doing things like books, festivals, different formats in which we could touch people's heart. And what you see here is a frailejón. The scientific name is Espeletia. It's a plant that only exists in Colombia, Venezuela, and Ecuador. And when we start asking ourselves, what can we do for the food of the glacier, which is snow, to come back, we found the answer in the páramos. The páramos are the ecosystem below the glaciers. And we started thinking, what if we restore those ecosystems that are threatened by fires, by mining, by cattle, by agriculture? And we are ignoring, not only in Colombia or in the Andes, but all over the mountain ranges. And we start creating nurseries and greenhouses. And this plant takes 2 years since we take the seed until we have a baby frailejón of 15 centimeters. So we started working on that, and this is what we also want to achieve with Glacier Nation and all the other countries, to find the equivalent of this plant. And I'm just going to finish by saying that the reason why it's in gold is to remind us that the real gold is water. If we keep forgetting that water is the origin of life, and that's what glaciers represents. They are crystals. Snow is crystals. So we are here to remember that they are the temples, the cathedrals, and the most sacred lands. And the more awareness we do in this International Year of Glaciers, where we will bring awareness, and they will touch people's hearts like they touch mine and most of the people that are sitting here in this room.
Great, yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for these very important words, Marcela. I'm wondering, is the technical problem solved? Great. So I would like to welcome again Sofia Lana, the anthropologist from Argentina who has been working with us in the book. She's based at the University of California, San Diego. Let's see if we can hear you now, Sofia. And if we can
hello,
hopefully
can
see
you hear me?
on screen as we had before.
Hello? Can you hear me now? Hello, hello, hello? Hola, hola, hola. ¿No? ¿No hay sonido?
Yes, so we can see you now.
So you
I
can't
guess
hear me?
but we cannot hear you yet. What I would suggest is that I think Sofia has to leave like in a half an hour, but maybe we can pass to the next panel.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is possible to see our slide, please. Yes, thank you. I would like to thank the UNESCO and the World Meteorology Organization for giving us the opportunity to contribute to these important events. Between the last 19th and the early 2000s, thanks to my work, I had the opportunity to follow many scientific and mountaineering expeditions to very remote part of the Earth. During this expedition, I was able to see with my whole eyes how some landscape have been affected and changed by human activity. Back then, the scientist and the scientific, and I have been affected and changed by human activity. I'm sorry. Back then the scientists and collaborated with have been very clear about the urgency to address climate change. At the same time, I realized how this urgency was understood by the civil society. This is the reason why in 2009, I founded the Macro Micro No-Profit Association with the aim to carry out long-term project to document the spread, the effect of climate change. With an interdisciplinary approach and a team of scientists, photographers, communicators, and filmmakers, we use the documentation produced during the project to create awareness about climate change by making it accessible to the public. In 15 years of activity, we have established collaboration and partnership with public and private institutions to work for environmental protection. We have completed on the Trail of the Glaciers. Now we are working on a new project entitled Ways of Tomorrow that seeks to document the direct and indirect effect of sea level rise. Thank you for your attention, and I will now hand over the floor to our communication strategist, Emanuele Bonpan, who will explain more about the project on the Trails of the Glacier and its exhibition, Earth's Memory.
Thank you so much, Fabiano. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today. As a communication consultant, I've been following very closely the work of Fabiano on this project. On the Trail of the Glacier, it's a unique project that blends photography and scientific research to show how climate change is impacting the world's glacier in the last 150 years since the Industrial Revolution, since climate change is really being affected by humans. This is a project that compares historical photographies with new ones, done exactly in the same location, within the same period of time of the year, and with a very detailed attention of the quality of the image itself. I had to work myself on a slope to replicate exactly a photography because there was an explorer exactly in that point, and Fabiano wanted to do exactly a similar replica of this photography. Footsteps of the early explorers, the early photographers from the late 1800s, the early 900s, we have been able to recreate these historical images and to have a tremendous impact. But that wasn't just an expedition, that was a scientific experiment, and that has a specific mission that was to influence people to get a sense of the impact of climate change. Melting glaciers are probably the most impactful images these days together with sea level rises. It's because there is direct attribution, because the impact is huge, and because when we look at this picture, we really understand the amount of water we're losing. We really understand the amount of resources we're losing, the tremendous economic impact it has on our security, on the security of our family, our kids and grandkids. And when I saw for the first time these images replicated, because of course I see Fabiano and the huge team have been working on this project, we have seen the result. And the first image we are seeing is the Damello mountain in Italy. Well, the images shocks you. There is nothing like these images that gives you, with their details, with their beauty, the tragic beauty, the width, the dimension of the impact of the melting glacier in our world. And these images are, unique because they are so well replicated and, finding also the original archives with these images has been one part of the project that really shows the size, I don't even need to speak on these images. They speak by themselves. This is Caucasus. No comments needed. The images does. If you compare the two, one next to the other, this is the Marmolada, famous for the tragic accident that happened a couple of years ago, where the part of the glacier collapsed, leaving a huge scar on the mountain. And then again, and we keep going because this is a very, very large scale project. We're talking about 314 photography comparison. The project itself lasted 13 years. 87 glaciers were analyzed. More than 21 institutions and universities been involved. It's a really massive project. Let's say over 100 people have been working on it. 8 expeditions, you see on the maps where the project has led Fabiano and his team. And of course, the result that have been producing not just amazing photographies, but also new data, new information that are useful for scientists, for researchers, but also a great work of archives analysis, very useful for historians, very useful also for glaciologists themselves. Because now all these images have been cataloged, have been georeferenced, has been updated, and so there is a new available database of these images. All the new images has been georeferenced because it's also a project about time. So it's not only a comparison about what is today and what was before, but in 50 years, thanks to the high quality georeferencings, photographers will be able to replicate the project in 30, 50, 100 years, 200 years. So we will have a very detailed history of the glacier of the world through images. And that's again, research. Of course, it's an amazing project, but also has a very, very large scale impact. Because quality is one part of the program. I'm a journalist. When you publish an article, you need impact. You need people to read your story. Because great journalism is nothing if it's not read by people, it doesn't have an impact. This project has been exposed to a lot of broadcasting videos, articles, websites, interviews. We see over 262 million people have been reached worldwide. National Geographic in many different countries has published stories about this program. La Nation has been running the main page. Movies has been done, documentaries, of course, presentation like the one we're doing today, multimedia presentation, school presentation, of course, because kids are the ones that are mostly interested because it's the future that's ahead of them, a future with water scarcity, even in a region like Northern Italy, that 5 years ago, no one was really thinking about water scarcity in our region. I'm from the mountain of Trentino, and we are seeing that impact. So it's good that this type of project goes around and have an impact. And now, since 2022, finally, we have been able to realize a multimedia exhibition called Earth's Memory, Glacier Witnesses of Climate Crisis. You can see some videos outside in the presentation, just outright here of this hall. Basically, this exhibition showcases all the result of these 13 years of work. So it's, of course, all the photography, the best photography, the most impactful photography with the classic diptychs, but also multimedia, so you can analyze data, you can see how the picture has been taken. You also see equipments, historical equipments, of course, compared to the modern high-tech equipment that has been used doing these pictures. Explorers equipment, so it's a very immersive exhibition, and from now on we'll be touring in next year. So if you're also interested in the exhibition, please get in touch with us. You know, I really hope that all these projects we're seeing here will keep going, because we really need those type of multimedia, artistic, journalistic projects to really show the world the impacts of glacier and what's ahead in front of us. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to try connecting to our virtual participants again, just one more time.
Great, yes, and sorry to go jumping from back and forth, but let's see if we can hear now Will Gadd, who is a professional both of them are there. So let's try with Will. Will Gadd is a professional ice climber from Canada, and he has been also labeled as United Nations Mountain Hero because besides his athletic and professional climbing activities, he's a well-known climate advocate, making a lot of communication on climate change. So without further delay, I'll pass it to Will or to Sophia. I don't know, whoever we can hear. Could we try if we can hear any of you?
I can try now. Can you hear me in the room?
Oh, fantastic, Will. We can hear you very well. The floor is
Okay,
yours.
I'll be quick and then pass it off to Sophia. See, hopefully it works for her. First, thank you to everyone on the panel and part of this discussion. It's been a very inspiring morning for me to hear you. Sometimes when you do work in this area, you can feel very alone. And as I listen to your stories and your work, it just really inspires me. And some of you, like Dr. Pomeroy, live in my own country, and I have not met you. So thank you for doing this, and I look forward to meeting all of you. My contribution as an athlete is to try to tell the same stories you are. Again, it's common ground to share what we see and hopefully make a difference. And I thank Mr. Kleiber Nacho for putting this together and having me be part of it. It's valuable, and this is what we need to do. We can't yell at each other, and we have to share stories and engage people emotionally. And I'm very happy to be part of this book with so many much more accomplished people. And let's keep telling our stories and sharing the images and hopefully make a difference. But it's important work, and just thank you to everybody for doing this, and I'm proud to be involved in a small way. And I'm out, and maybe to Sophia or as works. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Will. It has been really great to hear you. And this picture that you can see here is of Will Gadd climbing in Kilimanjaro. He has a great video online where you can hear his story of trying to replicate a famous ice climbing route, which does not exist anymore. And so you can hear him online if you Google him about that incredible story. So yeah, just our last speaker would be Sophia. Let's see if we can hear her online.
Hello,
now.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me over there?
Yes, great, we can hear
okay,
you.
Great.
So thanks a lot, Sophia. The floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. I'll just be really quick. I was invited as a co-editor of this book because of my research with Bolivia's tropical glaciers and Mendoza, Argentina's subtropical glaciers. I'm from Argentina, but from the coast. I fell in love with mountains later in my life. And through a comparative ethnography, I started my PhD in 2018, so it's been a long time. I've explored what occurs when glaciers melt beyond the catastrophic or disastrous consequences we've come to associate with. As glaciers melt, life continues under generally potentially more constrained conditions. My role in the book, beyond the obvious, as a co-editor, have been to bring attention to the complexity of the particular or the local. The natural sciences tend to look over or sacrifice particularities of place to make universal claims. It's part of the scientific method, but my discipline grounds its theoretical claims in those particularities. And as a diverse team of editors, we've engaged with those differences to negotiate a middle ground from which to write and think together. And through those negotiations, we came to this agreement, grouping our interviewees according to emotions. Why emotions? Emotions are shaped by life experiences, intimate relations to place, structural factors like the economy, politics, culture, history, and of course, relations of power. Yet what we found interesting was that emotions were a node or a point of encounter that recognized our interviewees' diversity, their different worlds and world-making practices. And as other scholars have pointed out, emotions are also sites of knowledge production as we think about how to live with climate change. And as a final note, and as you read our book, we urge you all to consider how those who tend to be portrayed as the first victims of climate change, are already living in a rapidly transforming world. And perhaps rather than impose what one might consider to be a solution, it's worth listening to what they've already done and learned in the process, which we really try to bring forth in this book. So thank you very much, and thank you to the team and everyone else on this panel.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Sophia. I'm really happy that we managed to connect with you. And so I'm now going to turn the floor to our last presentation, which is from Dr. Anna Sinisalo. And for the past 5 years, Anna has been working for GRID-Arendal, specializing in environmental knowledge brokering at the science policy interface. With a PhD in glaciology, she's focusing on human-nature relationships and impacts of the changing cryosphere on societies, and is deeply committed to advancing a more sustainable future for all. Anna.
Thank you. I have to stand, and then I understand if you need to stretch as well. It's been a long day, so feel free to stand or stretch while I'm talking. I don't mind, but I think we need some energy. And yeah, exactly. Thank you. Very good. It was very inspiring and also moving to hear the presentations by the colleagues. Thank you very much. We are really creating connections. I would like to reflect a little bit the process of developing this book, Arctic Permafrost Atlas, and how we who contributed to it in the process also created deeper connections with Arctic nature, Arctic peoples, and each other. Next. Oh yeah, now I can do that myself. So this is the story of permafrost thaw, another important component of cryosphere. And it was a major collaborative effort by 155 people as part of a EU-funded Nunatarjuk project. We had many people working together, scientists from different disciplines, artists, including cartographers, and people living in the Arctic or working in the Arctic. Levi Westerveld was our cartographer who was creating all the maps, more than 80 maps of permafrost, as well as hand drew many of the graphics in the book. And I asked him how he sees the atlas now, and he said that, yeah, the atlas is telling the story of permafrost at different scales and connects the human experiences and scientific knowledge from local to global. And many connections we found. This is part of the conclusions of the book. I don't want to go to the details, but just showcasing, you see that there are lines going to every direction. And then part of the story was how the physical processes happening on the ground are linked to the many of the hazards ongoing in the Arctic with different kind of scales, with different kind of onset times. And also the consequences, there's lots of consequences on culture, livelihoods, recreation in this area, in this region and beyond. But there is more. We also present 9 stories or portraits of the people living in the Arctic in this permafrost environment or working in there. Like this portrait of Gwen Haley Akearok, who is leading a non-profit community health research center in Nunavut, northern Arctic Canada. And all these stories were shared with artist Olga Bourgeon-Privet, who then used them as inspiration and created 9 different artworks for this book. Here, for example, making an element that looks like Inuksuk, a landmark by Inuits, showcasing how a community is placed on the fragile permafrost ground, here presented as an ice block, and how the moon and the stars are just observing the changes in silence. Olga also writes in the book that she felt a very deep connection with the people that were presented in these stories. She understood their problems and feelings perfectly. The common to all of them was permafrost. Olga herself is also coming from the Arctic part of Siberia and has also a deep connection to the land. In this illustration, she is describing permafrost as something breathing and moving creature, as was portrayed by one of the scientists working for this project, Susanne Gertler. I also asked Gwen now afterwards, when she has seen the final product, how does she feel? Does she feel a part of the book or connected with the messages? And she said many things and concluded by saying that in the bigger picture, the way of living in relation to the land and water, yes, love for this Arctic land is what connects us. Levi said that his hope is that through this book, we can make visible something that is often overlooked. The tales of the people who experience the changes and live far away, or the natural processes themselves that are still yet closely linked to our own well-being. And we believe that we managed to create some shifts in the hearts and the brains or minds of the readers. Tina Kurvits was very optimistic, one of the lead authors, after receiving quite overwhelming feedback, also saying that, for example, Norwegian government officials, after seeing the book, had said that finally something that will help people like me understand the issue. So it's important to aim at impact, and through these stories, beautiful arts, we hopefully manage to create emotions that move people and help people to take action. I would like to finish with Olga's words also in the book. As I learned the stories of others who are experiencing environmental change, I became more deeply inspired by it and understood how important it is not to be silent about it. And we really hope that either seeing this book or any other of the great work that has been presented today, many of you feel the same. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're a little bit behind time. So I think what I'm going to do is direct some of our panel questions first to two of our speakers who have not had an opportunity to speak yet. We've got Dr. Laurent Fouinat, who's working with GRID-Arendal and has a PhD in earth sciences, and Dr. Joanna Zvolin, a project manager with the Zoe Environment Network, where she leads various projects that can translate complex environmental issues into accessible communication. So to the two of you, I'm going to ask, why does art speak to society and help in responding to cryospheric loss? And how do we achieve value added by integrating art, science, and voices into communicating the urgency of the crises at hand?
Thank you, Zoe. It's very good to be here today. And
Yeah, very good question for this panel today, because at GRID-Arendal we try to communicate and try to make it very visual and something that we understand that is touching more people. So what we've done also in this those 2 days that we are here is bring with us an exhibition that is located on the right side of the room over there in the corridor, which is called Glaciers on the Edge. It's an exhibition designed as interactive, so it's a touch screen. You'll see a sign over there, and I invite you to go and try it out, because in this new way of doing an exhibition, we have the possibility to integrate a lot of photos, multimedia, videos, and also some testimonies from the people that are the most impacted from the glacier loss. The exhibition is structured around the key messages of the International Year of Glacier Preservation. So there's examples for each of the key messages, and we try to find as many testimonies there to make sure that this emotion also of the people that are experiencing the change is brought to a larger public and to policymakers, to make sure that what we've heard a bit earlier today about finance, about adaptation, about all the things that are needed with the glacier loss can be better understood and also that can be fed into this process of adaptation and the need for the finance there. So yeah, it's very important, and I will stop there for now. Thank you.
No, perfect. Thank you. And Joanna, do you have comments?
Thank you very much. Also for me, it's a pleasure to be here and being part of the discussions and listening to all of you and with the interesting projects you have. I don't want to extend that too much. I think we have been listening already from added values that artistic activities can bring, from fostering dialogue between different stakeholders to connecting knowledge with emotions, and also amplifying marginalized voices. I think that's also an important added value artistic activities bring in. Maybe, if you allow, just a few words also related to the future. At SOI, the organization I'm working for, we have been involved in a project which aims to illustrate socioeconomic scenarios for a specific region in the world. And well, we call that maybe scenario building art. And I think applying this concept also to adaptation or inaction related to cryosphere changes could also be very valuable. So art that visualizes possible futures, highlighting both the consequences of inaction as well as action, adaptation, sustainable development, like really visualizing this could maybe bring some value. And why? Because I believe, or I think it could empower us, communities, stakeholders, different stakeholders, to envision ourselves, themselves in this changing world, and really exploring ways of how we react, how we adapt, how we take action. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. So we're already we're already past the hour a little bit. So I think I'm going to see if there's any questions from the audience for any of our speakers here today. Don't be shy. And I know it's been a long day. Yes, sir.
Thanks. That was a great set of art presentations. Really great. My question is on the paired pictures, which I agree captivated me and showed a lot of ice and then not much ice. I wonder if there's room for similar sets of pictures from a little bit downstream, which might show some people or some ecosystems or some other aspect of the difference between the late 1800s and today, you know, alongside the pictures of the high glaciers.
Thank you for the question. Right now, we're starting to work on a sea level rise, so a lot downstream. We haven't been working on the middle mountain. Well, mostly focused on glaciers, not on the area impacted by melting glaciers. Might be interesting, but it's a little bit more complex because a lot of differences in behavior, in economy, and so on. It's a great suggestion we might consider, but I think for the next 5-8 years, sea level rise will keep Fabiano's team and my attention. So thank you so much for the input. It's indeed, you know, it's a project that other photographers can carry on, and indeed can really reveal how society are transforming because of the lack of water specifically. Thank you.
Okay, and John, I'll let you have the final comment.
Yes, there's a project called the Mountain Legacy Project in Canada, which has been photographing scenes collected during the surveys of the boundaries in the late 1800s. Other family photographs, the Vaux family took iconic photographs of the Rockies around the turn of the 1900 century. And these have been rephotographed, and they display not only the dramatic decline of the glaciers, the changing of the snowpacks, but the changing forest structures, the impact of the eradication of the bison on grazing, the displacement of the indigenous people from their traditional homes and lives into reserves and others. There's been so much that has happened in that region since colonization in the late 1800s. And so these are valuable things, but we need, the ice is a big part of it, but we need to look holistically at the ecosystem and the social systems and how these have co-evolved together, sometimes not in the right way, but it's very interesting. One thing that surprised me, there have been massive wildfires in Banff National Park and Jasper National Park lately. And of course, there's been suppression of wildfires. And if you look back at the photographs around 1910, there's a lot of open grassland in there because they used to burn on a natural basis before we thought putting out fires was a good thing. And so these fire regime changes are also evident as an example. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we'll end here. I want to say thank you very much for all our panelists. Thank you to the audience. Have a great evening.